What does life look like when a rugby legend marries into royalty and trades stadium roars for countryside stillness? At Aston Farm, nestled beside Princess Anne's royal estate, the gates don't shout power, they whisper tradition. This isn't just another celebrity mansion. It's where Mike Tindall, World Cup champion turned royal gentleman, lives a life of quiet luxury, family warmth, and timeless English charm. Today we step inside his world, from his home to his fortune, to the legacy he's building in the shadows of a palace. Before Aston Farm, before royal garden parties and Buckingham banquets, there was mud, there was blood, and there was a boy named Mike Tindall who grew up chasing a ball through the cold fields of Yorkshire. Born in 1978 in the town of Otley, Mike was raised in a working-class family with no royal blood, no silver spoon, just solid values and a stubborn will. His father, Phil, was a banker. His mother, Linda, a social worker. There was nothing glamorous, nothing posh, just hard work and cold mornings. So how did this boy from the north become a son-in-law of Queen Elizabeth II? Let's rewind to the pitch. At Clifton College, Mike's athleticism stood out, but it wasn't just his strength, it was his brain. He read the game like a chessboard, saw gaps before they opened, tackled before others even flinched. Soon, he earned a place at Bath Rugby, one of England's top clubs. He was only 18. Then came the call up to the national team, but nothing came easy. He was dropped from the England squad in 2000 after struggling with form and injury. Critics wrote him off. Pundits said he was too slow, too stiff, too ordinary. But Mike had a habit of proving people wrong. In 2003, under the iron leadership of Sir Clive Woodward, he returned to the national squad. And on a cold November night in Sydney, he did the unthinkable. England won the Rugby World Cup. Mike played every match of the tournament. He wasn't the flashiest player, but he was the spine, the glue, the relentless force behind every defensive wall. He returned to the UK not just as a rugby player, but as a national hero. And fate was just getting started. That same year, at the Manly Wharf Bar in Sydney, a young woman approached him after a match. She wasn't an actress, wasn't a model. She was Zara Phillips, an Olympic equestrian, and granddaughter of Queen Elizabeth II. She wore jeans and no makeup. He had a broken nose and a pint in hand. Yet something clicked. They kept in touch. Secretly at first, but soon the tabloids caught on. A rugby lad dating the Queen's granddaughter? It didn't fit the script. But Zara, known for her rebellious independence, didn't care about scripts. Neither did Mike. Their romance grew in the quiet corners of Gloucestershire, far from cameras. Rugby matches in the day, horse trials on the weekend, Sunday dinners with Princess Anne, where Mike reportedly passed the royal test, not with charm, but with honesty. He wasn't trying to be royal, he was just Mike. In 2011, they married at Canongate Kirk in Edinburgh. No golden thrones, no televised extravaganza, just a quiet, heartfelt ceremony with family, friends, and a deeply bonded love. By then, Mike had captained England, weathered injuries, and played over 75 tests for his country. But his greatest legacy wasn't just on the field. It was building a life, rooted in loyalty, forged through struggle, and crowned by love. And as they settled down into married life, the question came, where would they live? A palace? A castle? Number. They chose a farm, Aston Farm, right next to Princess Anne's Gatcombe Park. And that, dear viewer, is where this new chapter begins. Aston Farm. What does royal living truly mean when you're not quite a prince, but certainly not ordinary? At Aston Farm, we begin to understand. This isn't some gilded palace behind iron gates. It's a 700-acre stretch of land bordered by Gatcombe Park, the grand royal estate of Princess Anne, Mike's mother-in-law. But Aston Farm? It's quieter, earthier. As you turn off the country lane, the gravel crackles beneath your tires. A modest wooden gate swings open to reveal wide green fields, riding paddocks and winding trails shaded by century-old oaks. At the center stands the main farmhouse, built from traditional Cotswold stone, its walls honey gold in the afternoon sun. It's stately, yes, but lived in. A home, not a showpiece. Inside, exposed beams stretch across warm ceilings. The kitchen, Zara's favorite room, is rustic and inviting, with cast iron cookware hanging above an Aga stove. The dining table? Long, wooden, worn with years of shared meals and muddy boots. There's no red carpet here, just the soft echo of 3 children, Mia, Lena, and Lucas, laughing somewhere between the vegetable garden and the horse stables. Once owned by Zara's brother, Peter Phillips, the farm became Mike and Zara's home as their family grew. It's a place for bonfires in the evening, sunrise hacks on horseback, and morning walks with the dogs, unbothered, untouched, and perfectly theirs. It's not just proximity to royalty, it's belonging. And before Aston Farm, before the royal farmhouse and paddocks, there was a smaller, humbler place where the Tindall love story truly began. Let's step back in time to the little Gloucestershire cottage that held the first sparks of something greater. Mansion in Gloucestershire. Before Aston Farm became the Tindalls' sanctuary, there was something simpler, smaller, cozier, but no less special. Their first true home wasn't surrounded by 700 acres or royal paddocks. It was a modest Gloucestershire cottage, tucked behind a winding country lane, barely visible from the road, exactly how they liked it. The exterior was charmingly uneven, its stone walls weathered by centuries of English rain. A wooden gate creaked with character. Ivy curled along the windowsills. Inside, every room told a story. The ceilings were low enough for Mike, at 6'2", to duck. The kitchen, just wide enough for 2, became their evening haven. There, they'd cook together, Zara stirring while Mike chopped, the radio humming low, and the scent of roast chicken filling the air. There was a brick fireplace in the living room, where they'd sit with mugs of tea and muddy socks drying on the hearth. No staff, no silver trays, just 2 people figuring out life, side by side. On quiet weekends, they'd walk their dogs through neighboring fields, holding hands in old wellies, the kind of peaceful domesticity few royals ever get to live. That cottage bore witness to their early years. Late-night talks after rugby matches, celebrations over Olympic medals, even disagreements resolved by the fire over glasses of red. And then came the planning. Their 2011 wedding in Edinburgh was low-key by royal standards, but their love had outgrown the cottage. They needed more space, for dogs, for horses, and eventually, for kids. So when the opportunity came to take over Aston Farm, a property already within the family, there was no hesitation. Still, they didn't abandon their first nest easily. They returned to the cottage often, especially before Aston Farm was fully renovated. In fact, insiders say that Mia, their first daughter, took some of her earliest steps on the worn hardwood floors of that little home. The cottage wasn't just a stepping stone, it was the foundation. A humble start that grounded their marriage before royal titles, public life, and national scrutiny began to creep in. Today, the cottage still stands, not as their main residence, but as a symbol, a reminder of where they began, of how love, not luxury, builds a home. And though Aston Farm now holds the keys to their life, it's on those narrow cottage stairs where their story first found its rhythm. But life isn't just about where you live. Sometimes, it's about what drives you forward. And in Mike Tindall's case, those answers might just be found in his garage. Cars. What does a royal-adjacent rugby legend drive when the cameras are off and the gravel paths call? For Mike Tindall, horsepower isn't just for the stables. It's also in the garage. Range Rover Autobiography. Every royal family has one. And for Mike, this isn't just a status symbol, it's a necessity. With luxurious interiors, air suspension, and a 5.0-liter V8 engine, this vehicle conquers everything from muddy Gloucestershire backroads to Balmoral-like terrains. More than once, neighbors have spotted him rolling through Aston Farm's gates with all 3 kids in tow, a bag of dog food in the trunk, and a sleepy Labrador riding shotgun. This is his dad car, but dressed in a Savile Row suit. Audi Q7 TDI Quattro. When it's about family first, Mike turns to his Audi Q7. It's clean, quiet, and deceptively fast. With 7 seats, a panoramic sunroof, and virtual cockpit displays, this is the Tindall family's go-to road trip vehicle. Zara's been seen riding beside him, sunglasses on, windows down, heading to weekend getaways or dropping the kids off at equestrian events. It's less about show, more about efficiency. And Mike? He loves things that work hard without making a fuss, just like him. Jaguar F Type R Coupe. But not all his cars are practical. There's one vehicle that whispers indulgence. The Jaguar F-Type. A sleek, low-slung coupe with a supercharged V8 engine, capable of 0 to 60 miles per hour in just 3.5 seconds. It's British. It's bold. It's built for those rare solo drives when the farm is quiet and the open road beckons. Legend has it Mike bought this after a major speaking engagement, one of those rare treat-yourself moments. And when the weather's right, you'll hear it before you see it, roaring down the A46 like a lion just let out of the paddock. Each vehicle tells a different story. Some roar, some whisper, some carry royalty, others carry rugby gear and gumboots. But together they reflect the dual life Mike Tindall lives, half sportsman, half royal, fully grounded. And speaking of grounding, how exactly does someone like Mike afford a fleet like this, along with a 700-acre farm and a life of luxury? Let's pop the bonnet on his quiet fortune. How does a man with no royal title afford a life that looks this regal? It starts with $700,000 per year. That was Mike Tindall's peak salary during his days as a professional rugby player, first with Bath, then with Gloucester Rugby, where he became team captain and a fixture in English sport. But unlike many athletes who spend fast and fade quickly, Mike planned ahead. And when the final whistle blew on his career, he had already begun writing his next playbook. Mike's reputation as a World Cup winner and royal insider made him a coveted speaker. Whether it was motivational talks for corporate retreats or sports conferences across Europe, he brought authenticity and humor. Each appearance reportedly earned him between $15,000 to $30,000, a tidy sum for a man who knew how to work a room just as well as a rugby pitch. In 2020, Mike launched a podcast with fellow former players James Haskell and Alex Payne. At first, it seemed like a passion project. But the show exploded. The Good, the Bad, and the Rugby quickly became one of the UK's most downloaded sports podcasts, attracting sponsors like Amazon Prime Video, City Index, and Guinness. Its commercial success now nets Mike 6 figures annually and has turned him into a media personality in his own right. In 2022, Mike made headlines when he became the first royal family member to appear on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here. The public was surprised. The palace was silent. But Mike? He charmed the nation. Reportedly earning $180,000 for his appearance, he reminded viewers that you can be royal adjacent and still have a wicked sense of humor while eating bugs in the jungle. Mike's image, family man, sports legend, and real-world royal, has made him a magnet for respectable British brands. He's been involved in campaigns with Land Rover, Rugby World Cup sponsors, sports betting firms, and charity tie-ins that balance his public persona with integrity. While Zara brings her Olympic equestrian earnings and inheritance to the table, Mike has held his own. Together, they've built what insiders estimate to be a joint net worth of over $18 million, all without formal royal funding. No taxpayer money, no annual grants, just hustle, discipline, and smart moves. Because sometimes the most royal thing about a person isn't the bloodline. It's how they build their legacy. And while Mike's fortune powers the lifestyle, it's his heart that fuels something far deeper: philanthropy. Some causes begin with headlines. Others begin with heartbreak. For Mike Tindall, it began with his father's battle with Parkinson's disease. Phil Tindall was more than a father. He was a mentor, a best friend, and the grounding force in Mike's life. When Phil was diagnosed with Parkinson's in the early 2000s, it shook the family. Mike, then still at the height of his rugby career, couldn't fix it with strength or strategy. So instead, he channeled his pain into purpose. Mike became an early ambassador and later a key fundraiser for the Cure Parkinson's Trust, a UK-based organization dedicated to funding groundbreaking research into treatments, and one day, a cure. But he didn't just show up for photos. He ran marathons. He hosted gala dinners. He even participated in extreme expeditions, including a grueling charity trek across the Arctic alongside other athletes and wounded veterans. These efforts have helped raise millions of pounds, directly supporting clinical trials and new therapies. And through it all, Mike shared his story, not as a celebrity, but as a son trying to honor his dad. Alongside Zara, Mike is also a passionate supporter of WellChild, a charity that helps seriously ill children and their families across the UK. He's visited hospitals, spoken at fundraisers, and even auctioned off personal items to raise funds. One memorable moment? He wore a bespoke suit with tiny horses on the tie, designed by children in the program, for a high-profile event at Buckingham Palace. Mike turned the spotlight back on the kids, saying, "I've played in front of 80,000 people, but these children face challenges that make rugby look easy." With Zara's deep roots in competitive equestrianism, the couple also supports riding therapy programs for disabled youth. They've hosted charity polo matches, farm open days, and local Gloucestershire campaigns aimed at preserving green space and supporting rural mental health initiatives. Aston Farm isn't just a private sanctuary, it's a platform for outreach. Mike and Zara have quietly donated land use, resources, and time to make the local area not only beautiful, but supportive. For Mike, philanthropy isn't a royal obligation. It's a personal mission. There are no flashy headlines, no viral moments, just steady commitment to science, to children, to community. His style is understated, but effective. And whether he's trekking across ice for Parkinson's research or reading stories to children in hospital wards, there's one constant. He shows up, again and again. Because the measure of a man isn't what he earns. It's what he gives back when no one's watching. And while Mike has given generously to others, he's also fiercely protective of the people closest to him. Let's step into the private world of Mike and Zara, and the everyday magic that fills their quiet countryside life. Personal life. What happens when the stadiums go quiet, the flash bulbs fade, and the world stops calling you by your last name? For Mike Tindall, it means waking up at Aston Farm to the smell of fresh-cut grass, the sound of horses in the paddock, and the laughter of children echoing down the hall. This is not a palace. It's something better. It's home. Every morning starts the same way, not with protocol, not with press briefings, but with coffee, made by Mike. Always strong, always early. By the time the sun rises over the Cotswold Hills, he's already set the breakfast table for Zara and their 3 children, Mia, Lena, and Lucas. No chefs, no silver trays, just porridge, toast, and a dad in slippers reminding Mia to pack her rugby kit. Zara, ever the equestrian, is already outside by mid-morning, tending to the stables, preparing for a riding session, or simply taking in the stillness of the land. They operate like any busy modern couple, except that their neighbors include royalty. Weekends at Aston Farm are a mix of traditions and muddy boots. There are pony rides, football matches in the garden, bike races through the fields, and spontaneous trips to the coast in a battered old Land Rover. Mike is hands-on, coaching Mia through rugby drills, helping Lena with school projects, and bouncing Lucas on his shoulders during walks around the farm. At night, the house glows with warm light and quiet chaos. Books are read aloud in the living room. Toys are scattered across the hallway, and Zara often sneaks in a glass of red wine while folding laundry. It's not royal in the way we imagine. It's real, and that's what makes it so precious. Despite the public fascination with their lives, Mike and Zara maintain a tight circle of close friends, most of whom aren't famous. They've been seen holidaying in the south of France, skiing in Switzerland, or enjoying low-key nights at village pubs. Mike is also a favorite at rugby reunions, while Zara keeps close ties with her equestrian teammates. Their rule is simple: live quietly, laugh often, protect the children. You'll rarely see them flaunt vacations or post glamour shots. Instead, they capture the real moments: Lucas feeding a pony, Mia winning a school race, or Lena baking cupcakes in the kitchen. For a couple so often in the spotlight, Mike and Zara have mastered the art of retreat. They've found joy in repetition, in fresh air, in early nights, in the shared silence of a fire-lit living room. Where other royals might find pressure, they've found peace. Where others see a title, they see a team. It's a life without frills, but filled with depth. And as the dogs curl up by the hearth and the stars emerge over Aston Farm, one truth lingers. Mike Tindall didn't just marry into the royal family. He created a new kind of royal life. Grounded, generous, and gloriously normal. From the thundering roar of Twickenham Stadium to the quiet rustle of trees outside Aston Farm, Mike Tindall's life has been a journey between mud and majesty, between bruises and bonfires, between World Cups and bedtime stories, between wearing England's jersey and setting the breakfast table for his royal-blooded kids. He's not a prince, not a duke, and yet, in the most essential ways, he's as royal as it gets. Because what is royalty if not loyalty? To family, to integrity, to living a life that's honest, grounded, and meaningful? Mike never asked for a title. He never chased headlines. But he built a kingdom of his own, one without walls, without guards, but with 700 acres of freedom, laughter, and legacy. His life is proof that you don't need to be born in a palace to bring grace to the world. Sometimes, it's the ones in muddy boots who understand elegance the most. And now, as the gates of Aston Farm close behind us, we're left with the scent of wet grass, the echo of children's laughter, and the sense that we've witnessed something rare. A man who quietly became iconic, not by noise, but by presence, not by rank, but by heart. If this story touched you, if you've ever wondered what royal life looks like without crowns and cameras, give this video a like, subscribe for more quiet stories from extraordinary lives, and tell us in the comments, would you trade the spotlight for peace on a farm next to a princess? Because maybe, just maybe, that's where real royalty begins.